right, good morning. We have gathered here today to talk about secrets of the Mogwai. We're going to learn all the secrets, or at least maybe one or two of them. Guys, when you decide that you're going to make like a new entry in the Gremlins universe, like how do you decide where to start with that? How do you decide, like, you know what, we're going to take it back to the origins, baby?
It's a good question because there's so many places that a Gremlins prequel could have gone. But I think from the very beginning, we had talked about it being a prequel series starring the old Mr. Wing.
There we go. Yeah, this is good. We just talked to this one. But no, as he was saying, early on it was decided to really focus in on Mr. Wing. Because I think it is kind of amazing how in that first Gremlins film, so much is hinted at, or not even explicitly hinted at, but it's like that whole store and the fact that there's like this pre-existing relationship between Mr. Wing and Gizmo. It's like there's clearly been an entire life lived to get Mr. Wing to that point. So he's just a character who immediately lends himself to so much to explore. And also it's honestly, it's a way to flesh out a character who, on first glance, can be a little bit of a cliche or a stereotype. So here's a chance to kind of give him a full life.
I love that.
It says my internet connection is unstable, which was felt personal, but let me know if it has any problems.
It's like, Z, why do you look at me when you say unstable? Okay, that's just me. Okay.
Yeah.
It's me getting in my own head. Yeah. All right. No, I think that's so great because that is a character that is very much a character, but also when you see him, he's such a small part of the movie, but also a huge part of the story. So it's like you're innately just like, what is this guy's deal? What is the history here? Why does he know all of this? How did he come about having a Mogwai in the first place? So it's really cool that he's now given this kind of way to kind of unfold and we get to take it back to Shanghai. And also, how important was it? You're talking about a character versus a fully fleshed out character, but now you're taking it to Shanghai and you're following this Chinese family and kind of you get these like cultural things. Was that important to you to include as well?
Yeah, that was definitely from the very beginning, talking through some of the influences. I mean, the Chinese spirits and creatures and monsters were ones that I grew up hearing about and ones that like scared me in Hong Kong 80s movies. And I do think that part of the thrill of the show was not just researching with the writers and finding out, more mythology to put in there in terms of like that backdrop of Chinese culture, but also, when it comes to scary stuff, I think Western audiences don't really have a context for some of the creatures that or a history of knowing about the creatures that pop up in the show. And so that was definitely something that's going to be, I think, fun, is that when Western audiences are watching this and being introduced to these creatures, it's also like they come with some mystery. They're not just like a werewolf or a vampire or a zombie, as much as I love all those things. It's like a different type of scare, and one that we thought really fit with the tone of Gremlins, in that like those Chinese spirits and creatures are very often like, they very often have rules, and they're weird and they're scary and they're also really funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Jiangxi especially was like kind of all of those things in one, and just a natural kind of like sibling to the Mogwai.
Some of my favorite stuff to see in new kind of monsters, not new kind of monsters, but new to me kind of monsters, are just like every culture's mythology is just so rich with all of this stuff. And for some reason, we don't tap into it very often. Like I grew up hearing stories, I'm Mexican, so I grew up hearing stories from like Mexican mythology and Mexican culture. And some of that has made it into the mainstream, but like not quite, or it's just slightly hinted at. But then when I get exposed to other cultures' mythology, and I'm like, more of this, please. Like I didn't grow up hearing these. Like tell me more about this, because this is so fascinating and new to me.
No, I mean, I think it's one of those things where and Brendan knows a lot of this because he's watched like Hong Kong movies and stuff with like Stephen Chow. But a lot of the cast and crew, I mean, the crew and the writers were Asian, and so they also grew up with these stories, which was really fun to have that shared experience. And for us, it was really important that the scares were not just like scares, like the creatures and monsters, while they're scary, the show is very serialized and it's very character driven. And so wanted to make sure that each time they come up against a monster, the question is not just like, what is that monster? What makes them tick? Why are they scary? Why are they doing this? It's also like, how does that monster act as a mirror to our characters, because we really wanted to make sure that in the show, you start off Mr. Wing as a 10-year-old kid, as far away from the wise old man that you've seen. He's very scared and afraid of the outside world, and just seeing him become stronger through the course of his friendship with Gizmo and Elle as he comes up against these obstacles was important for us.
I love that. As you're breaking down the monster, we're not just saying like, why is it this? Why is it this? I'm imagining the monster like, so what's my motivation? Like, right. And that's not what you wanted to do.
No,
there is one that literally
divas.
is that.
Yeah.
In episode 3, there's a monster who's
that's right.
always looking for his motivation.
What is my motivation? I love that.
He loves a good monologue.
Who does it?
Different takes. Exactly.
I also, a cool aspect of this is like, the older that I get, the more I appreciate all the adults in my life, but especially my parents and my grandparents as like actual human beings, and not just this entity of like, that is my grandpa. But I wonder, I would love to see like, fuck, what were you like as a 10-year-old kid? Like, what were your, you were not the same person. So I would love to get to see a glimpse of that. And this plays with that a little bit. Like, we know him as this like ancient wise old man, but now you see him as a 10-year-old kid and he's nothing like that yet.
It was definitely important for us, to tell a story where there's kind of like multiple entry points in terms of like, if you're an audience member who's older or a parent or a kid or a teenager, and there's kind of characters that kind of represent all those things in the show. And for us also, in the original Gremlins movies, the mom has kind of the most badass sequence. I mean, she probably slays the most gremlins besides, the very end. And wanting to honor that with a kind of badass mom and a little bit of a scaredy cat dad who ends up, becoming brave at the end. Spoilers.
Yeah, and grandpa. It's the whole thing of crazy grandpas. Sometimes their insanity turns out to be true. Like the crazy things they talk about aren't just stories they tell you.
Yes.
But yeah, it's also early on. And also our Warner exec Audrey Deal made the fantastic call of not just getting rid of the parents. Because in the writers' room, we did have those conversations like, like we could just kind of like lock them up for the season, or even the kind of very classic in animation, kill off a parent or two, just so you don't have to carry as many characters along. And I remember, our exec specifically has a whole thing like, I'm tired of parents always dying. Don't like kind of like, or if they die, let them earn it. Like, it's not just like kill them off to make your storytelling easier.
Right.
And as a result, it was great. It ended up being like, so if we're going to really take them, we have to make them real characters, and you get this multi-generational monster fighting troupe by the end of like the kids, the parents, and the grandparents kind of all involved.
Was that ever in the running for the title of the show, multi-generational monster killing troupe?
We should have. I don't know why Brendan didn't bring that up in the writer's room. I'm furious.
Yeah,
it was right there.
On streaming, you can always take it down for an hour, put it back up with the new title, it'll be fine. I still like your pitch of kid-friendly dismemberment.
Yeah, that was my...
I would tune in for that for sure.
Exactly.
That's awesome. What would you say Gremlins fans would find in this to kind of latch onto and enjoy?
Brendan and I mean, look at his sweatshirt. We're like huge Gremlins fans. And so, for us, it was about making a show that we would enjoy now, but also that, there's been almost 40 years of no Gremlins stuff out there. And so trying to make a show that would have appealed to us at any point during the last 40 years. And just wanted to honor that and put in Easter eggs for the super fans, but also create something that's inviting enough that maybe kids or teens that haven't watched the original Gremlins movies can still enjoy, and can maybe be a gateway to them watching this and then watching the original Gremlins movies.
Yeah, I love that.
I also just want to throw in it. Look, as a Gremlins fan, and as somebody who I feel like my entire sense of humor kind of got jump started and defined by the two movies, especially the second. In my head, I've been brainstorming. My brain has been that Key and Peele sketch of just brainstorming Gremlins gags for at least the 30 some odd years since the second movie. This is finally a chance to like, what's everything you ever wanted to do with a Gremlin? And since we were animation and not having to deal with puppets that were going to break down and drive us nuts, we could actually do it. So there's a chance to get all of that onto the screen.
Nice. I have one nephew who's very much like a horror nerd now, so I feel like I can watch this with him. He's seen Gremlins and he's old enough to have watched that, but he would enjoy this. But I have like a baby nephew now, so I'm like, when he's old enough, I could show him this, and this will be the gateway into like, and now the live action Gremlins, you know?
Exactly. That's the perfect way.
We bookended it. You guys did a great job of that.
Thank you.
Can we talk about your cast for a moment? Because holy shit.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
No, it's crazy. I mean, it's these are folks that, you know, were everybody's heroes, you know, growing up, and it's really nice in that we have really a broad range of like the OG Asian American heavy hitters, you know, James Hong, who in the first voice record talked about one of his first acting gigs, acting opposite Clark Gable. And then
oh my god.
Yeah. And he's like maybe the last person you can say his career got started because of Groucho Marx, like genuinely.
Jeez.
And then you have Isaac, who's now like 12 or 13 years old, and you have this wide range, and just seeing all, and you know, Ming-Na and BD. I mean, this was I've never had this before, where we really got our first choice for everybody. I mean, it was always like, well, why don't we go out to like, you know, let's just try. And then all of a sudden, we're like, oh my God, they're signing on. This is incredible. And just more recently, even just seeing the show on the big screen and it being done, like the amount of life that these actors, you know, brought to the characters has just been really incredible.
Yeah, it's been so cool. It really is. I was gonna say also, it's been fun. It was fun watching them record, and just almost every single one of them just really cutting loose. Like just I remember Matthew Reese just like in a booth alone in New York during the pandemic, and it's like still over Zoom, just the full body type performance that these people are having. It's kind of just cool to see them really they're all having a blast also with the shows and screen.
That's
and
amazing.
Speaking of that, I mean, I just have to like shout out this crew. I mean, we were in the middle of, actually the beginning part of like the first year of doing season 1 when the pandemic hit, and our line producer Danielle was like, all right, it's happening. I have 4 Google Docs. You got to look at them, unplug your computers, go home, stay safe. We can keep working tomorrow. And we really created this show, both seasons, during a pandemic. And it was certainly hard for everybody, but it was also like kind of therapeutic that we were working on, you know, I mean, Mogwai are kind of like the original pandemic to me.
Yeah. The pandemic, you can actually have a chance of fighting. So it's very cathartic.
The pandemic, you can see and wrap your hands around its neck. You know what I mean? Like it's
you can at least turn on a light and do something about it.
Yeah. Like pandemic that you can explode in a microwave. Like
exactly.
Oh man. Joe Dante was a consulting producer on this. Like how was that? And also how hands-on was he, or did he kind of just give his blessing and turn you loose?
I mean, he came on early on, and he read the first couple scripts and came in, and it was amazing. First off, that he was so positive about the show, and then also he just came in and talked to the creative team about like what was so fun about making the original movies, what was frustrating about the Gizmo puppet, and how the Gizmo puppet was a nightmare. He spent a lot of time talking about like, what a nightmare the Gizmo puppet was. But you know, to have his blessing and to have him and Spielberg's blessing on the show meant a lot to us, obviously. And we're stepping into a world that was created when we were kids and trying to, you know, put our stamp on it. And the fact that they gave us so much creative license, and also I think really pushed us to make the show, you know, delve into the Mogwai mythology and make it as emotional as possible. Like we felt really blessed that we had the support of them and Amblin and Warner's, the people who started it all.
Yeah.
Amazing. I that has to be wild to grow up as such a fan of this, and then now you get to do your take on it, but also in collaboration with the dudes who brought it to life in the first place. Yeah.
It's totally surreal. It's like I was remembering, it's like my childhood cat I named Gizmo. The first backpack I had at school was like a backpack that had like a little Gizmo like drawing on it, so it looked like he was peeking out. Like, yeah, this is totally a full circle moment for kid me. And yeah, it's unreal, especially getting to like talk to Joe and kind of like get to hear all his tales of like making the movie, and even getting to hear his tales of like, oh, we never had an official kind of origin story for Gizmo in our head, but I remember the one thing he drew, I was like, we thought maybe like a dragon mated with a panda. Like that was like his like kind of like, yeah, maybe something like this. Yeah. But it's like Kennedy just learned stuff like that. And like I said, just let loose the gremlins that have been running in my brain ever since. It was
Yes.
a dream come true. Yeah.
This was your destiny.
Exactly. There we go. It was this, or to just create gremlins like chaos in the world. So I'm glad this came through.
I'm glad you opted for like, let's create rather than
Yeah.
destroy with the gremlin. Use your gremlin's power to create or destroy.
Exactly.
I mean, one of the things I found most touching about, when Brendan and I and Dan Kroll, our supervising producer, pitched Spielberg was, we went through this like pitch about the whole season, showed artwork. And then when we were done, the first thing he asked was, has Joe seen it and is he happy? And it was like, it was such a testament to that like friendship and that collaboration that 30 something years later, that was the very first thing that he wanted to know. And I thought that was like a really sweet thing. And I hope that.
Yeah.
God.
His internet hates it when he talks about other filmmakers. The internet's very possessive.
His internet said, shut it down, shut it down.
Yeah.
As if I couldn't love Steven Spielberg anymore. Though,
Exactly. No, he was like incredibly sweet.
That is very cool. Well, when Z comes back, I guess we'll close it out. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
About the experience? We got to play with the Gremlin puppets from the original films at one point, which is the other highlight. They took us into the Warner archives, so we got to see all of the like very well preserved, like I think it's mostly from Gremlins 2, because it's kind of like the Rick Baker, like different colored Gremlins. But yeah, I got to even wear one of the helmet style ones on my head.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we got to, they really, I don't know, it's just, and we got to meet the kid from the beginning of Gremlins, Mr. Wing's grandson. Turns out John Louis is the actor's name. He still works at Warner Brothers now in merchandising.
It's so random.
What?
It was amazing, but it's like getting to hear his tales of making the film, but also he also brought us some Gremlin swag since that's his current job, and he pops in for a little nice cameo on the show. So yeah, it's it was cool. There's like all the legacy of Gremlins at Warner Brothers, and we got to kind of like, I don't know, get to know all of it and get to hopefully now be a part of it.
That's amazing. Also, I'm picturing you two just running around like gremlins amongst the gremlins, like putting on your head, gremlin like
pretty close. If there wasn't a tour guide, it would have been that. We would have had gremlins driving one of like the 9 Batmobiles in the archives if we were left to our own devices.
They did tell me to get out of the Batmobile at some point. They have them all there. They look like they're ready to be sat in. So
they really do.
But you know what? Sometimes it's better to ask forgiveness rather than permission. Because guess what? You got to sit in the fucking Batmobile.
I have a good photo. I should post that photo. I've never looked as happy.
Yeah, do it. You're just beaming. Guys, this has been awesome. Is there anything else you would like to share with us before you go unstable?
No. I mean, Brendan and I, we've spent the last 4.5, 5 years finishing each other's sentences. So I'm sure whatever he said was correct.
Pretty accurate.
As you watch this back, what?
yeah, I can't believe it. I just want to throw it also, so excited to talk to Fangoria, because that was, I was remembering, it was actually around the time of Gremlins 2. It's like Gremlins 2, Darkman, and Tales from the Crypt all kind of landed around the same time. And that was when I started noticing like the Fangoria covers. And they were no longer the thing that like scared me and I'd like stay away from on like the magazine rack. I'd instead start flipping through. So again, full circle. It feels cool to be chatting.
Nice. We've also had Gremlins on the cover, and by Gremlins I mean Joe Dante and Mogwai and Gizmo. You know,
that cover. Yeah, because I was looking that up the other day. That picture of him is awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And now it's funny thinking that he was just like venting his frustrations with Gizmo, and then like they're like together on the cover, and he's like, this little fucker.
Exactly. It's that rough actor that you have to then do promotional stuff with. Yeah.
Exactly. On the press junket, be like, I can't stand this guy. Sit on my shoulder, snap the picture, and then get out of here. All right, thank you guys so much. Secrets of the Mogwai is streaming on Max. Check it out.